Good day, everyone.
I am Shania Blas L. Angelo,
And I am John Ian Cruz,
your head reporters for today.
So, for the past lesson, we have tackled about the philosophical definition of self.
Now, this time, we are going to tackle about the psychological perspective in understanding the self. I have here a question. Who are you? How do you define who you are? Some may say, I am who I am. But then, if you are who you are, then who are you that makes you who you are? Together, let's learn the various definitions and theories of self. In 1890, William James, the father of American psychology, distinguished two understandings of the self as me and the self as I. He called this the concept of self. The difference between them is that the I self is the metaphysics. It is basically concerned with the existence of the self, meaning you know that you exist. While the me self is the person's personal experience and is subdivided into three categories: the material, social, and spiritual self. The material self refers to the tangible objects, people, or places. Example, the clothes, the house. While the social self refers to the interpersonal relationships. Example, parents or siblings. Lastly, the spiritual self refers to the inner and psychological self. Example, the attitudes, emotions, and the value. We also have the relational self. It includes other people with whom we have a personal relationship. Lastly, we have the collective self, the social roles, social categories, and social group membership that we have.
The individual self. Any actions of a person and their ability to perceive their surroundings through hearing, seeing, and smelling what's around them depends on the nervous system. Neuron is the basic functional unit of the nervous system that sends and receives signals or messages to other nerve cells. Neurotransmitters are the body's chemical messengers. They transmit signals from the neuron to the target cell. So what are these types of neurotransmitters? First is adrenaline. It is responsible for your body's fight or flight response. Second is noradrenaline. It increases blood pressure and helps break down fat and increase blood sugar levels to provide more energy to the body. Third is dopamine. It is responsible for that rush of joy when you accomplish a goal or succeed at a task. Fourth is serotonin. It has a lot of influence over your mood, promoting feelings of well-being and happiness. Fifth is GABA, or the gamma-aminobutyric acid. GABA plays an important role in behavior, cognition, and the body's response to stress. Sixth is acetylcholine. It is a chemical messenger or neurotransmitter that plays an important role in brain and muscle function. Seventh is the glutamate. It plays an essential role in normal brain functioning. It is also responsible for sending signals between nerve cells and plays an important role in learning and memory. And lastly is the endorphins. It inhibits the transmission of pain signals and promotes feelings of euphoria.
Now, let us proceed to the different theories of how personality develops. First, let's discuss about Freud's psychosexual stages. So the first one is the oral phase. The infant achieves gratification through oral activities such as feeding, thumb sucking, and bubbling. The second one is the anal phase. where the child learns to respond to some of the demands of society, such as bowel and bladder control. Third is the phallic phase, where the child learns to realize the difference between males and females and becomes aware of sexuality. The fourth one is the latency phase, where the child continues his or her development but sexual urges are relatively quiet. Lastly, we have the genital stage, where the growing adolescent shakes off all dependencies and learns to deal maturely with the opposite sex. Now, let's proceed to Sigmund Freud's levels of consciousness. Freud divided human consciousness into 3 levels of awareness: the conscious, preconscious, and unconscious. The conscious level operates the ego. These are the thoughts we are aware of. Example, what do I do after work? What do I do after school? Second is the preconscious level. This operates the superego. We are not conscious at first but can be conscious through a cue. Third one is the unconscious. These are the thoughts that are inaccessible to our consciousness and we can't be aware of them.
According to Carl Jung, a psychiatrist, personality develops through a series of stages that culminate in individuation, or self-realization. He grouped the tiers of existence into 4 well-known periods: childhood, youth, center existence, and antique age. Childhood, which is characterized by the development of the ego and by the beginning of logical and verbal thinking. Youth, which is the period from puberty until middle life. Middle life, which is a period of tremendous potential. And old age, which is the diminution of consciousness. Analytical psychology is essentially a psychology of opposites, and self-realization is the process of integrating the opposite poles into a single homogen.
According to Carl Jung, there are 4 levels of psyche. First, we have the conscious. These are psychic images sensed by the ego. Second is the personal unconscious. These are the repressed, forgotten, or subliminally perceived experiences. Third, we have the collective unconscious. These are the ideas from the experiences inherited from our ancestors. Lastly, we have the archetypes. These are the archaic images derived from the collective unconscious.
Jungian archetypes are defined as universal, archaic symbols and images that derive from the collective unconscious, as proposed by Carl Jung. They are the psychic counterpart of instinct. We have animus, or the masculinity in women, shadow, anima, or the femininity in men, and persona. It is to believe that both Jung and Freud have developed theories together, but they disagree with some of the matter. Jung believes that the conscious mind constructively works on our emotions. On the other hand, Freud believes that the conscious mind actively crushes our emotions.
One. Trust versus mistrust. At this point, the child is very independent to the adult caregiver. If the caregiver fails to provide enough care and love, the child may feel that they cannot trust adults. 2. Autonomy versus shame and doubt. At this point, children are starting to gain knowledge. They are starting to perform basic actions of their own. They start to have simple decision making. 3. Initiative versus guilt. At this point of development, children begin to affirm their knowledge and control their life through directing play and other social interactions. Those who fail to acquire their skills are left with a sense of guilt, self-doubt, and lack of initiative. 4. Industry versus inferiority. At this point of development, children need to cope with new social and academic demands. 5. Identity versus role confusion. During this stage, adolescents search for a sense of self and personal identity. Those who remain unsure of their beliefs and desire will feel insecure and confused about themselves. 6. Intimacy versus isolation. This stage covers the period of early adulthood where people are exploring personal relationships. Those who are successful at this step will form relationships that are enduring and secure. 7. Generativity versus stagnation. At this point of development, adulthood continuato build lives, focusing on career and family. 8. Ego integrity versus despair. At this stage, people reflect back on the events of their lives and take stock. Those who look back on a life they feel is well lived will feel satisfied, while those who regret will feel fearful.